Welcome to Charity Champions, the podcast where we hear from inspiring leaders behind some of the UK's most impactful charities. I'm your host, Emily from Charity Recruit. Today, I'm joined by Karen Horner, CEO of Tomorrow's Women Wirral. With over 20 years' experience in the charity sector, Karen's grown alongside the organisation, starting from its inception and stepping into the leadership role when the founding CEO retired. Her journey is really heartfelt and honest, and a brilliant example of leadership through transition. So today we're going to explore Karen's reluctant shift into the CEO role, and I know she won't mind me saying that. I'm sure she'll come on to explain, and the pressures of sustaining funding and the struggles to retain talent amongst public sector competition. We're also going to dive into some tough but important conversations like public perceptions of CEOs' pay and in the charity sector world. So without further ado, let's get into it. And here's our conversation with Karen Horner. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you, Emily. Nice to be here.
Lovely to see you. And I know we've obviously had an earlier conversation, so there's plenty of things that we can discuss today. But I think it'd be really useful for our listeners if you could talk us through that transition from operations to CEO and what surprised you throughout that journey.
Yeah, of course. I think with that journey, I'd like you just said before there on the intro about the slight reluctance in which to do this. Yeah, I have been with the charity since its infancy, and I think it was just I loved doing the operations side of the role. I absolutely loved it. It was myself and the founder CEO initially for the first couple of years with Tomorrow's Women, sort of making those connections, building the charity, put it on the map, so to speak. And I loved all that aspect of it. I loved meeting the partners. I loved managing the staff on the everyday, and I really loved that part. And then I could see the CEO, obviously the stresses of what it is to run a charity. And then I was alongside her with that. It was a stress for me, but wasn't quite the stress that she had as the CEO. And I think that's where the reluctance came from, of thinking, why would I want to have that pressure?
I suppose you're that one step removed, aren't you? And you can see all that ultimately the decisions lie with her, and then you're thinking, do I really want to put myself in that position?
Exactly. Why would you want to put yourself?
Why did you?
Peer pressure, I'm going to say, heavily peer pressure. I think I think I knew the charity so well.
Yeah.
And yet sometimes, it was that thing where I thought, well, maybe, do we need a new CEO who can bring maybe a different aspect, a different vision into the charity? Maybe I'm not the right person because I have been with it from the get-go. And am I not seeing things differently? May I not bring something different to it? I might need to, to stay in its longevity. Maybe I'm not the right person. So I think there was a lot of doubt there as well.
I see.
Why would I want to do that? And then I think, the staff who've been with us a long time as well, we're sort of, please do it, you'll be great. And, sometimes we don't like change either, do we? And I think it was, they felt in safe hands if I took it on because I knew the charity so well. Yeah, exactly. So it was a little bit of everything, really. And so I think, if a new CEO come in, I would have quite happily fell along with that. But then there is the aspect going, well, what if their vision is not our vision? And what if the changes are too changeable? Do you know what I mean? There's the fear of that as well. Of
absolutely.
This is not our mission, or this is not what we were intending. So it was very to and fro, really, of what does this look like? And in the end, I went for the interview and then I got the job. And that was daunting.
I bet. So talk us through that initial period of when, the exiting CEO has left and all of a sudden, you're going from operational to strategic. How did you manage that transition?
Do you know what? Probably not smoothly, I'll say. And I think it was because because you feel you're in the same role because you're in the same place. And it's very hard then to go, right, I am operational and now I've got to take on this role. And we just obviously launched our second women's centre then in Chester as well. So our founder and CEO supported getting that off the ground as such, with the building and everything else and the staffing. And then she retired, and then I come in and took over. Then, I mean, our Birkenhead one was very established, but then we took on Chester. And so it was kind of like, I suppose I didn't really have time to think about stuff as well, because I was too focused.
You're just so in the throes of it.
Yeah, because now I'm focused on Chester. What are we doing in Chester? How are we going to, get ourselves known? How are we getting our faces known? How are we getting our name known? How are we getting our seats around the table? And I think very much that was the focus. So the transition in that way, it was daunting and it was heavy, but I think it didn't make me overthink it a bit as well, if that makes sense. I kind of just had to get on with what we were doing now, because we had this new centre and we couldn't fail, and we had to push that forward. I think that's probably, but I do think as well, it was hard, I think, for some staff to see me in that role as well as myself.
Well, do you know what? That was my next question, was going to be, how did you manage that transition from being a colleague, with your other senior leadership team to then, becoming the person who they're reported into? How did you cope with that, and how did they cope with that?
Do you know, I'm going to say, and I hope they agree, that we coped really well with that, because they were quite supportive of me taking the role on. The SLT team, so that, I think that helped as well. And I'll be very, very honest with them, of like sometimes thinking, what am I doing? Like, seriously, what am I doing? And they'd be like, you've got this, it's fine, we've got it. It's and you bound those days like that. And I mean, I had one the other day. It's like, you don't go away when you sit there and thinking, what am I doing? It's like, am I getting this right? Am I the right person? And I think I'm always going to have those. Even though I've been in the role now for 2.5 years, I think I'm always going to have that. But yeah, I think that transition with staff was probably difficult, because they'd still come to me around a lot of operational stuff. And I still wanted to be a part of the operational stuff. And I would say it was hard for me to move away from that, because that's the bit I like. That's the bit I wanted to be a part of, the the frontline part of it, and in the thick of it type of thing. So I must say, even though I am doing the CEO role, I still keep a bit of that, because I can't quite let go.
So did you re-recruit somebody into your role then? How did that all work out?
Not necessarily into what my role was. It kind of got separated between the SLT team, and then we brought somebody else on within the SLT team. So it kind of got divvied out, I suppose, is the way I do, or like pushed out around that way. And I kept hold of some little elements of things, but it's worked well in how we've sort of transitioned some of my role onto other staff members as well, not just all the SLT. Things like operationally, I was doing our timetable, our activities, meeting our partners and stuff. So we had one of our staff members who came to us on a kickstart. We took her on after a kickstart. She's done amazingly well, and then she's come into that role. So we've kind of moved her up and like gave her that role, so she took on the responsibility of like the timetable, the partners and all that, and she's doing an amazing job of that. Even though she felt like, oh my god, am I ready for this, she was so ready for that. And it's that for me is a brilliant transition and journey, to see that she came as a young person on a kickstart, and she's
what an amazing story. Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you've got such a responsive senior leadership team, and being able to progress people through your structure is such an accolade, I think, for the organisation, and you must be quite proud of that.
Yeah, and that's the bit that you really like to see. And we've had women who've come to us in recovery, come to volunteer, and then they become part of the staffing team. So I mean, we've got to promote and do what we say we do. Generally, we've got women who've been in the criminal justice system who are also on our staffing team, and I love that. And it's to see that change and the belief and the confidence that they can become a part of tomorrow's women as a staff member, should they want to be as well, in our journey.
Yes, absolutely. And what a case study, what a case in point when you're going out there and talking to funders and getting the message out there. That in itself is inspirational, I would imagine. Do you tend to use that within your bids and whatnot?
Yeah, we do tend to use that. And then some of our staff are quite happy to go and talk about that as well. Obviously, we don't say we're not doing that whole push them forward to talk about
No.
it, but some of them are quite happy and really want to share their story around that and say, this is where I was and this is where I am now. As you can imagine, we go and do a lot of talks out and about and stuff. We'll go into universities, we'll go to women's like WIs, we'll go to the other community centres, we'll go to mother and mummy and tots groups and stuff like that, and we'll go and talk about what tomorrow's women can do. And then if it's relevant and we think there's a need, then some of our staff really want to go and chat about their experience. So especially if it could be funding related, because they all get, we're a charity, it's difficult, it's difficult times, and you kind of want to showcase that what we say we do actually does do that work, and that's the only way to sort of showcase that sometimes.
100%. And how has that funding landscape changed since you've stepped into the role? What sort of developments have you seen in your time as CEO?
I mean, I think there's a lot of changes within funding, and I know there's a lot of. I think for me, there's a lot of other charities or CICs type styles popping up. I think there's quite a lot of that, and I know everyone's coming to do some great work, and it's amazing. People want to open charities and do this work, and amazing. But sometimes I think there's too much duplication, and there can be too many of us trying to do that work, and sometimes it might be look for charities that are already doing that, and if you agree or align with them, then maybe invest in them and or get involved in them somehow, because I just think these pots are getting smaller and there's getting more of us all aiming for the same pot, and it's becoming difficult right now, I think, to hit the criteria all the time. And as I say, they'll come out and say there's this amount of money, but we can only take this amount of charity. It's a dog eat dog kind of world at the moment, I think, and it's quite a nervous one.
It's hard, isn't it, I think, when you're in that situation, because like you said, everybody's working towards the same goals, they're trying to help in the same way, and I know that there's a lot of talk around collaborations and charities working in partnership with one another, but that can cause its own issues, can't it, along the way? Long-standing relationships that one charity have might not transfer to another, and that collaboration piece, whilst in theory it sounds ideal, often in practice it can be difficult when you've got two different boards and that sort of thing. What's your experience of that?
I mean, for us as in partnering, so we partner with a lot of agencies and a lot of services. We within other charities, we'll work alongside other charities. We'll do work with other charities. We've gone in on bids with other charities. It's been a fine experience for us. We've not had any negativity of doing that.
That's good.
But I'd say for the partnership work, that's really important to us to do that work. And like there's a local charity I'm desperate to kind of partner with at the moment, and they want to do it with me, and we put bids in together. We just haven't been successful together, which is sad, really, because they're coming from a very male stance to us coming from a women's stance, but we kind of want to be united. Yeah, but we want to be united front to say, just because we're women and just because they're male doesn't mean we can't collaborate in some way to do that. We're not mission drifting. They'll still do what they do and we'll do what we do, but we've just got a combined interest in something. And I'm quite keen to still do that in some capacity, but again, it's getting the right funders to fund that kind of work. And for us, it's a brilliant model for us to put forward, but if we're not ticking people's boxes and they don't see that work that we want to do, it's just a shame, really. But as in partnering generally, we've linked in with over like 250 partners for us to be able to deliver the service we deliver within Tomorrow's Women, because we know we're not the expertise and everything, Emily. Clearly we can't be. So I mean, we have like solicitors in every day to give like legal advice around, like, especially around kind of family law. Some of our women have involvement with social care. It can be very confusing, can't it? Social care, around contact.
It's a minefield, I would have thought.
Yeah, exactly. We have some amazing volunteers who have retired from social care and now they come and be advocates within our centres, so that when women come with like these letters that are just, what does this mean? Then these advocates can sit and explain it all. They've got the time and capacity to sit and explain it all, and they understand it all as well. I mean, for us, we can sit and read it, but we might be like, this terminology. And we don't want to set anyone up to fail. So we know our limits. we've got to know our
Yes.
limits and what we can do. So yeah, then we obviously link with other training providers who can do certifications, your local colleges. And we have people come in, other people have got their own funding who'll deliver things like yoga retreats for us, stuff like that. So we tend to partner with people so that they will get their outcomes for their
Yes.
people who are funding them and stuff. And to be honest, that collaborational work for us works really well. And I think that makes us more unique in the fact that we can offer all this stuff to where we have a very active timetable. And that's the only way we can have it, because our staff have got to do they do deliver on the timetable, they're qualified to do that, but again they've got to be available to the women who are coming in, who need that listening ear, who might be in crisis, who might need this advice, who might need that. And we've got to do the work we've said to our funders as well that we're going to do too. So it's great to have the collaborations and the partnerships, because they can bring a difference to what we can offer as well.
Absolutely. And from a personal point of view, obviously we've talked a lot there about those collaborations from an organisation point of view, but from a personal point of view as a CEO in this, what we're hearing all the time is quite a lonely position as CEO. What's your support network like, from a peer-to-peer point of view?
Do you know what? I've been quite lucky in that, and I've kind of sorted it out as well, because there was another charity that set up the same time as us, and their CEO is the founding CEO, and he's still there, and I do meet up with him often and stuff, and it's quite nice to kind of go, please tell me you're having the same issues as me, and it's like, yeah, and then when we meet, sometimes he's like, all I've done is rage on, and you haven't even said anything. I'm like, it's fine. Do you know what? It just makes me feel better.
Yes. Well, you're not on your own then, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you're having this as well, so brilliant. That makes me feel great. I can go back to work now. No, but it is just that sort of, I think you've got to find them people out, and you've got to have that trust and confidence in them as well, because it is hard, I suppose, in this sector about the trusting element too, because when you're talking about difficulties or struggles you're having as maybe personally, or as the charity, or as the CEO, you've got to have confidence and faith and trust in that person, and then I'm going to think, oh, there's a weakness there, maybe we could exploit that somewhere. I'm not saying people would do that, but there's still that thing of going, we're talking about funding, they might go for that same funding now, and I think it does make you kind of paranoid sometimes, and you've got to sort of get out of that head space as well of like, we're all trying to go for money, of course we are, but not everyone's ethos or mission's very different and stuff like that. I just think that paranoia does sink in sometimes of like, oh my God, we're all going for the same thing, who can we say what to, who can I confide into and stuff. But I must admit, the people that I do confide in have been really great. I do have mentoring as well from somebody now that I have quite regularly as well.
Oh,
and that really helps. Yeah, and that's
how
kind
did you source that then? Where did that arrive from?
It was somebody that I'd known from years ago who used to work on the Wirral. He's a CEO of another charity over in Liverpool, and he just wanted to kind of share what his experiences were, and felt like he could offer this to other CEOs and kind of be that support there and help and be that offload, I suppose, also. So he got in touch with me to say he was looking at piloting this out, and did I want to join on it? And I just thought, you know what, why not?
Yeah,
I've got nothing to lose. I've known him a long time. I've also been on like through the Lloyd's Foundation, they did like a leadership program, and I went on that, and that was with, and you went on away weekends, like away days, which is, it's quite hard to see how to kind of get those things in, but Lloyd sort of did that, and that was brilliant as well. So I met with the CEOs on that. I've kept in touch with one of the CEOs from there. She runs another women's centre, not
perfect.
that far from us and stuff. So I think that's really good, and I've really enjoyed kind of meeting these people and talking about what our things are. So even though it is lonely, and even though sometimes there's things you don't share, it's still nice to go, thank God I'm not on my own in my charity. We're all feeling it somewhere along the way. And I must admit, the board is really supportive and stuff as well. So I do get that from the board. Our chair is great. I speak to her quite frequently. So I do think I've got that support there, but it's still there's still that thing, it still hangs over you of like the stresses of being the CEO and
100%.
the waking up at like all hours in the morning, like, oh, what am I going to do about that? And oh my God, and there's a thought, and now I've got to do that. And it's like, yeah, that I don't think any of it, all
No,
of it,
I don't.
you still have moments.
I was going to say you could speak to 1,000,001 people, to try to offload, but you'd still be waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking those things, because ultimately, it is your responsibility, isn't it? But it's interesting. I was talking to a candidate earlier, actually today, and it's a lady who we'd placed in a CEO position, but she was actually an internal candidate. So they went through an external process, but they hired internally in the end, which was the right thing for that charity. But she was saying how she felt it was quite isolating, and she knows everything about the organisation because she's been there for so long. So that's giving her lots of great understanding. But equally, internally there are a bit of politics, about her being promoted and one thing and another. But what she was saying was she would love to do a mentor program or speak to other CEOs in that similar position. And I've sort of said, we can definitely put you in touch with people. And she said, but I don't have the time, Emily. I've got all this extra responsibility now. I still feel like I'm doing the original job that I was employed to do, and now I'm doing the CEO thing, and I've got the board meetings to attend, and I'm doing X, Y, and Z, and I just don't have the time. What I guess the question is, what advice would you give to her to say, where do you find that time?
I mean, if she's newly in post, I do get that. You do feel like, because as you were asking me earlier, how did you move from transition from one to the other? And it is difficult. And I think you've got to share your previous role out, so that releases you from that. But I do think it's really important to make the time. Like, I will meet with this mentor of an evening. I know sometimes it's not ideal, but I'll meet him after working hours. So it's on a Teams. We do it after work. It's like sort of 6:30 at night or something like that. But I do think it's important, and I do come off feeling better. And even though you think, I'm so stressed, I can't do it, I haven't got time, it is being a selfish thing to say. You've got to make that time, honestly, because do you know what? Sometimes I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, I remember our previous CEO being so like stressed about things, and like this, and she's retired now, and we are probably she's got her grandchildren. We are a distant memory to that now, and she probably feels relieved. And I think, Jeremy, it all consumes you at some point. But then if you take a step back, you've got to take that step back and go, it is all consuming, but I am just a person. And if I left, would it fall apart? Or would somebody else step in and take over that thing? And so sometimes it's about really focusing on how to keep yourself okay.
Yeah. Well,
and managing that.
Yeah, I said to her, you can't be effective in that leadership role if you're not firing on all cylinders yourself, because you're not looking after yourself. And she's big into running, and I said to her, you need to make that time. She's not been running since she'd been promoted to the CEO role, and I said, you really need to make that time, because actually looking after yourself is looking after the organisation as well, isn't it? Because you're performing better, your headspace is better, and both mentally and physically, And she promised me that she would make the time to go out for a run. I said, you must be able to have an hour a week somewhere in your day. Fingers crossed. I hope so.
Yeah, I hope she does do that, because I remember coming to this role, and I did say, and I said it to the board, I'm not going to let this role consume me, because I did see that, and I've seen that in other CEOs. I just thought, I don't want to be that CEO that this consumes my life. I have a life. It's, and as you say, I can't be as effective in work if I haven't got that balance somewhere. Yeah, the scales are off slightly. Of course, it's a stressful role to have, but I do try and make that time to go, do you know what? Is it literally going to fall apart if I take that hour, or if I do that over there for me to make sure I am better? No, it's not. And the thing is, I've got a really good management team, and then I've got a really good team underneath that as well. And I know they are all capable of delivering and doing what they need to be doing, that I can literally step away for a minute and go, it's all fine. It's like, and she will get to that point. I think it's just, when you're new in it, you don't want to look like you're failing. And especially if there's conflict of like why people think someone's in that position, or how did they get that position, that's challenging itself, isn't it? And I didn't really face that, and we've had staff changes, so they didn't know any different. They've only come in under me anyway, so to them, this is how it's always been. So that kind of helps as well, doesn't it? But I think, do you know what? You've got to take that time out because you will go stir crazy. And she will.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, it's those early few months right now of just making that transition. So fingers crossed, when I speak to her next time, she'll have that balance a bit better.
So. I'll happily sit and meet with her if she wants.
Oh, thanks. I'll put you in touch.
Yeah.
So I guess that brings us on to the staff retention side of things. I know when we spoke, we talked about, the public perception of the salaries within the charity and not-for-profit sector, and recruiting people and retaining people because the salaries are not what they are in the commercial world. What are your thoughts and views on that?
I mean, yeah, we do have that. We did speak to him about all this stuff about CEOs getting too much money and stuff like that. And I do think that's really unfair. You do have your big national charities, but that's a headache in itself, and keeping that going. I'm not judging anyone by what kind of salaries they tend to get. I know kind of within my sector, my salary isn't like phenomenal. And I think, you've got to look at, and again, it comes back to sort of funding as well. When you're putting funding bids in, it is that fear of like, am I asking for too much that they're going to knock me back? So we've got to so it's always that kind of thought process of going like, we need this is what we need. And it's trying to get those core costs as well, that some don't want to fund. They just want to fund projects and not necessarily your rents or your utilities or your staffing costs and stuff like that. And we do try and do as best as we can do. We look at what the bottom line is like for our area or our sector, and we do try as our salaries to try and put a bit above that, because we want to retain our staff. We do invest in a lot of training in our staff as well. We've trained our staff to be IDFERs, to be IDSFERs, stalking and harassment advocates, to have the level 3 training education, just so we can be self-sufficient in areas and we can support the women as we can. But then the problem comes with that, we make them very qualified, that then they become very attractive to other areas, and then they kind of tend to leave us the statutory there, because they've got all that training under the belt, and then you can go to statutory or somewhere else, and the salary is 10-15 grand more than we can offer. And sometimes you go, well, why wouldn't you? But it's not great for us, because we managed to secure that bit of funding to do this bit of training, and now we've lost that brilliant person because we can't sustain those type of salaries because we don't have that type of money.
That must be really frustrating as well, when you've invested in someone and you can see how good they are, and then not being able to keep them within the organisation and keep that skill set must be quite heartbreaking, actually.
I mean, I can't compete with that. I know that when people, and do you know what, most staff who've left have all kept in touch with us, because they say they've loved it here, and without this place they couldn't have moved on to that. But at the end of the day, cost of living and everything else, they're going to want to go for where the money is, unfortunately. Don't get me wrong, somehow we've got long-standing staff here who've been with us pretty much from the start, like the 11 years, 9 years, stuff like that. They've been with us a long time. But I think sometimes when you get younger staff coming in, sometimes it is a stepping stone for them. It's to build that confidence, it's to build that awareness, it's to get that experience. And obviously, I mean, I did it when I was younger. You move on, you want your experiences, don't you? Not so much now, guys. Just want to stay where we are. But it's unfortunate, I think, across the charity sector, it's hard. And then your salaries you're offering as well is the best that you can offer on the funding that you have, and you really want a good caliber of people to apply. But then we've got to be realistic and go, this is all we can offer as well. So how are we going to entice those people to want to apply? The benefits are there, and I'm not saying people should do it for nothing, because we do try and be a bit higher in our salaries than we can be, but we have to be realistic about that, because at the end of the day, when that fund runs out, Emily, we've got to find it somewhere else. And you're trying to retain these staff and keep them long term, not just project time. So if a project runs for 3 years, there's nothing worse to go to somebody, oh well, the 3 years is done, that's that. We, luckily for us, and touch wood and everything else, we've managed to keep staff on thereafter and source things elsewhere and monies elsewhere to do that, because you want to keep the staff, you need the staff. And so and that's a stress as well. That's always the stress of trying to maintain that and retain the staff.
And I think having an environment like you guys seem to have there, you seem very passionate, you seem very focused, and you seem very keen to develop your staff. And I think that definitely helps when it comes to retaining and attracting people, because let's be honest, people in the not-for-profit world aren't in it just for the salary.
No.
They are in it to do good and to improve the lives of other people more often than not. And I think having the right environment for them to flourish does go some way to compensating, but that development, I think, is key, isn't it? And giving them every opportunity that you can for them to develop their own skill sets is key. But you seem to have such a great team there.
Yeah, they are brilliant, honestly. They're great. And I think there's 20 of us now as staff. Some are part-time, some are part-time, some are full-time. But yeah, and do you know what? They all play to the skill set, and that's the thing, I think, as well, which I'm trying to do a lot more of, is work to their skill sets and utilize their skill sets, so they feel like, the job role might be, I don't know, say it's administration, but they might be really good at something else, and it's like, well, let's capitalize on you doing that. You want to do that, let's do that as well. So I do kind of like that team effort of everyone mixing in and getting involved. Yeah, we all have our roles to play, and we all have that to do within the charity and in what we have to deliver. But I do like to go, well, do you know what, if you want to move away from admin for half a day and go and do this over there, then so be it. Go do that. If we've got time and capacity to do that, then but and I'm keen for staff to, when we have things on the timetable, some of our staff will go, oh, I'm so interested in that. It's like, well, go and do it then.
Oh, that's nice.
Go and sit on that and go and have a go at that, or go and try it or whatever. And we're keen for that. So we've got line dancing on at the minute. So, and one of our staff members loves it. So she's like, as she's in our senior leadership team, she's like, I'm going to go and do the line dances. Go do the line dancing. She loved it. She come back like, it was amazing. So it's like,
that's brilliant.
You want to come to work, and we do listen to quite, it's hard work. It is. I think people have a misconception about charity as well, thinking it's all nice and fluffy, and it's like cups of tea and you do all these lovely things as craft and whatever. And I think, do you know what, it is that. Don't get me wrong, there's some of that, but there's some of the stories and the cases our staff have to support and deal with that women present with. It's so upsetting. It's hard hitting as well. It's very hard hitting, and you're listening to that sometimes on a daily basis. And I just think you need to have a bit of a laugh. You need to be able to go and enjoy something else outside of work. And I think, especially what we call our empowerment advisors, so they'd be like what you call your project leads or your case holders and stuff. A lot of ours are quite creative, to be fair, and so they will do the support of the women, whether that be women on the criminal justice side, whether it's women coming through because of domestic abuse or mental health. They will deal with that, but then they'll go off and deliver, say, a jamming session, or they'll go and do a cookery session, or they'll go and do these other things, which is what they like, as a bit of so we can kind of mix it up a little bit, so it's not constantly those hard stories all the time, because it's a lot to listen to day in, day out sometimes as well. It's impactful on anybody to listen to that. And it is hard work when it comes to that as well. When someone's fleeing domestic abuse and they're literally there in the clothes they're stood in, and now you're trying to get them accommodation and you're trying to do all these things. And sometimes it can be 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. And, and there's the safeguarding issues that come into that. There's a lot that the staff have to deal with on a day to day. So we do try and push in there that they go, come on, what do you like? If you want to do a bit of this, like today we're doing a bit of a fundraiser, because one of our staff, she does our drama group as well, and they're doing a Grease production in October. Right. So they're doing a car wash today to get money in so they can buy outfits for the Grease production and stuff like that. So they're doing things like that today. So it's it's just having a bit of fluidity of change in the charity. We all know what our core responsibilities are. We know what we've got to do, but sometimes it's just having a little bit of light, isn't it?
Yes. Well, it's bringing those light-hearted moments into what can be very challenging situations, isn't it? And like you said, it must be quite harrowing, the stories that the team have to listen to and get involved with. So I'm sure that they really enjoy that extra side of things and that variety that they're exposed to, which hopefully, fingers crossed, helps from a mental health point of view. Yeah. So what's next? Where are you going next with the organisation?
Oh, that's the question, isn't it? I mean, there's always that thing of like, where do we go next? And then sometimes I think people go, you're going to get bigger, you're going to go somewhere else. And sometimes for me, it's not necessarily we have to expand and go somewhere else to be bigger. I think you can make a big footprint on what you've already got. And I think, people are saying, are you going to go in this area? You're going to go in that area. And I'm like, for what gain or benefit? Sometimes that's not necessarily just because you open somewhere else. I don't always think that's a thing to make you bigger or make you more sustainable or anything. I think sometimes it's looking at what we do well, and capitalizing on what we do well. And obviously for me, there's a lot in the media around women, especially around violence against women and girls, around stalking and harassment and stuff. And I just think I want it to be very key and very lead in those type of areas as well. I mean, we're a women's centre, but we don't specialise in one thing, which, we're not just a domestic abuse service. We're not just, so we are a mixture of things. So we we cover, as I said before, mental health, substance misuse, domestic abuse, stalking and harassment. And obviously we do a lot around women in the criminal justice as well. So we have the probation services based within our women's centres. So I think that variety is great to have all under one roof. And yes. I think that's good for staff as well, because it's not always the same thing every day. We have differences every day. But I think looking at what goes on in society and for women, it's always still pushing that. I do feel like sometimes, I think my algorithms on my social media is not good because a lot of the misogyny stuff I seem to see, and I'm like, really, we still here? And at times I think, yeah, we're stepping forward, but at other times I think, God, we're stepping back. And that worries me. So I think for me, it's just keep flying the flag and pushing it that for women and getting us into, the places we need to be in, getting the correct support in place for women when they come and want to access us, that we're qualified to do it. We know what we're doing and we can deliver on that. And I think for me, I want to utilise and capitalise on what we do well now and get us better at doing that, not necessarily go, let's pop up another charity over there or do that over there. I want us to be great in what we do in the spaces we cover now. Yeah.
Well, I guess growth doesn't always mean expansion, does it?
No,
growth comes within further development of the services that you've already got, or bettering the offering that you're delivering. And I think there's a misconception, isn't there, that growth means more presence, more centres and all the rest of it. But actually, if that's taken away from what you've got that's already very successful, the growth then becomes making that even better, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think we've got to do that before we potentially maybe go somewhere else. Chester's still new. We've only been there 2.5 years. So I think, we still need to grow that service and stuff. And you're right. I just think sometimes people go, oh, where you go? For me, growth isn't always about where you're going to go next.
No.
It is about, let's just grow what we've got, make sure we're great where we are, and then we can look at doing something like that. And that's where I think I am with that at the moment.
Oh, well, it sounds like it's going to be exciting times for you personally and the development of the organisation. And I really appreciate you sharing your journey with us today. I've really enjoyed our chat.
Thank you.
Our listeners want to find out more about you, where can they access your information?
Oh, this is where I need Kate to tell you these bits. So obviously we're on social media. So we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we've also got our website as well. We're probably more popular on Facebook. Yeah, strangely, we're more popular on Facebook. See, our website's tomorrowswomen.org.uk, so we're on there as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you again so much for joining us. And don't forget, a note to our listeners, if you are enjoying Charity Champions, do follow and share our content. We've got more great guests coming up soon. Thanks for listening.